Hi, counseling psych students. How's everybody doing? Making it through the week. Just have next week as our last full week. Unbelievable. So I wanted to come on here and make a short video and tell you a little bit more about Gloria. I know I recorded a video initially just to introduce you to the films, but I want to tell you a little bit more. I don't know where to look, like when I'm looking at my phone. Do I look up here? Do I look? I don't know. I'll just be awkward. A little bit more about her backstory and some information about the videos that I think you might find interesting. I know I told you that they were filmed in 1965 and that the producer, Sjostrom, actually happened to be her therapist at the time. So he asked her if she would like to come in and basically do a little mini session with three of the great therapists of the time, contemporary ones, and she agreed. So she went in and had about a half an hour with each of them, as you saw. I can't remember what order she did them in. At the time, she was 30 years old. She was divorced, I don't know how long, kind of recent, and had 3 kids and was just dipping her toe back into the dating pool, as you heard. I'm looking at my notes here. So all this was just done in one afternoon. After that day, she did it with the understanding that those videos were going to be used for educational purposes to train counselors. That was why you are seeing them, and that most students tend to see them. Fuzzy thing fell off my microphone. But the thing was, my kid is screaming. This is not going well. I'm just going to keep going, okay? My kid is screaming on his video game. But after the videos came out, she was promised they were just kept for educational purposes, but apparently they were watching TV one day and saw an ad for one of them, so somehow they got released into the popular media. They were shown at movie theaters. So here she is telling some of the most private things of her life, and it's being shown to the country. So I think it ended with kind of a lawsuit of Sjostrom. She quit seeing him, and just a real ethical misuse of those videos. And so today, you can find them on YouTube. They're really old, but every counseling student everywhere sees them because it's the only opportunity to see the 3 greats with one person. So after that, she eventually remarried and then divorced again. She didn't have any more kids, but she had kind of a sad life after that. Her son, now she just mentioned Pam in the video, but she actually had 2 other kids. She had 2 daughters and a son. Her son died a few years later of cancer. He was only 15 years old. And so that event prompted her to go to nursing school. So she returned to school, became a nurse, and then became a hospice nurse. And so she worked that job until the end of her life. And she had been interviewed a number of times about this experience, what she thought, and basically her opinion is that she liked Rogers the best, which probably doesn't surprise any of you. She liked Pearls the least, which is also not a surprise, but she also found him to be the most helpful to her. Even though a lot of us were put off by his abrasiveness and the confrontation and the seeming just his personal mannerisms, she found him to be the most helpful because he didn't really let her get away with anything. These videos have been analyzed. If you Google in Google Scholar Gloria and counseling, you will find hundreds and hundreds of articles. Scholars have analyzed them and kind of come to the same conclusion that she liked Rogers the best, but Pearls was probably the best for her. Many of you were frustrated by Pearl's video because they didn't talk about any content. They just talked about here and now, which is exactly what Gestalt is all about. And are you a little girl? Are you in a corner? Would you choke me? Did you catch that? It was everything to try and bring her feelings out in the here and now. There has been some criticism that Pearls was condescending towards her. That's probably true. She acknowledged that a number of years later. She wrote like some kind of a response to it, and I've never been able to quite get a hold of that. One of the more interesting analyses of the videos looked at the one with Ellis, how much he talked. Analysis has found that he used 4 times as many words as she did in that video. He used 1,200 words, and she said 300 or something. So as you saw, it was very rational emotive style, very traditional, challenging and confronting and directing and teaching, and maybe you should pick up your doctor and all that kind of stuff. So most scholars agree that that is not a good example of rational emotive therapy because of his style, and he basically was trying to cram all the techniques into that 20-minute interview. So just kind of keep that in mind. But the basic idea of it was certainly there. A little bit more, Gloria actually died about 15 years after those videos were made in 1979. She was only 45 years old. She had cancer, I think lung, I'm not sure, but she died pretty quickly after diagnosis. And the daughter Pam that she talks about with Rogers wrote a book, and I don't know how this happened, but maybe 8 or 9 years ago at one of the big psychology conventions that I often go to, Pam was there speaking. She was one of the featured keynote speakers. I'm not sure I've ever been more excited in my life about seeing a talk because I love Gloria. I love what she's done for counseling. I love her vulnerability and her willingness to admit all those things on camera. And I could not wait to hear what her daughter had to say. So I went to this talk. I was early. I sat in the front row. I never sit in the front row. That's how excited I was. And she came in, and she wrote a book. And if I was in class, I would show you this book. You can look it up. And the daughter is very artistic. She's an artist, and so the talk was really interesting because it was like an art talk. She talked in metaphor. She just kind of free associated. It was tough for me because I'm a very linear thinker. I'm an ABCD thinker, so it was hard to follow her. And her book is very much the same way. The book kind of meanders from story to story. It's got some wonderful pictures of Gloria when she was young. But the thing that her daughter talked about in the book and in the talk was just how loving she was. And I don't think that really comes through in the video. Everybody loved her. She was just a person who welcomed you into her house and sat you down and brought you something to drink and something to eat and just made everything and everyone feel joyful. And that did not come through in the video. And the daughter also stresses that those videos are it's a capture of one moment in time for Gloria. So basically it was, 2 hours of her life that we saw captured, and we make all kinds of assumptions about her and that she's just looking for a man and that she lies down as a doormat. And none of that was true. And her daughter talked about how in the last couple of months of her life, she'd always longed to see Paris. So they took her to Paris, and she just had such a wonderful time and just such an enjoyment and exuberance for life. And so, so that would have been 1979. I mean, she's been gone, 40 some years, almost 50 years, something like that, between 40 and 50 years. So anyway, we continue to learn from Gloria. I can't imagine that future students of counseling will not continue to learn from Gloria. I wish I knew what your reactions were. I've read the message boards. I need to go back and read some of them. I so miss talking with you about these because I am so interested in your opinions. But in your journals, tell me about it. Write, what did you like? What did you not like? And they are not for everybody. Rogers, even though some people like him, he's certainly not for everybody. Some people find him creepy. I find him awesome. And the one line that he said when she was saying something about her father, and she said, "I wish I had you for a father." And he said, "You look to me like a pretty nice daughter." Did you see how that touched her? That was just the most moving part of the whole film. Well, some people don't like that, but I just thought it was very powerful. One other thing I want to mention is her contact with them afterward. She didn't have any contact with Ellis or Pearls afterward, but she and Rogers developed kind of a correspondence relationship. This was in the 60s and 70s. People didn't email. It was totally appropriate because he wasn't her counselor. I mean, he saw her for that one time just for demonstration, and that was it. So they wrote letters back and forth, and they never saw each other again. But until the end of her life, they continued to write to each other. So that was the big impact that he had on her. So I think that's about all I wanted to say. I just want to give you a little bit more backstory on these videos that to me are a really important part of the course. And that's it. I'll talk to you soon.